Welcome to another episode of the That's My Dad podcast. Our purpose here is to inspire young men, young fathers to become great dads. And we believe you inspire people by telling stories. So the podcast is about 85% inspiration and 15% instruction. And we always like to bring in a guest who has an inspirational story. And sometimes those guests, we bring them in and we don't even know what their stories are. And that's what's happened today. I've learned a lot about Dustin Freeman. He's our guest. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Scott, for having me.
All right, good deal. Dustin is the director of the Eagle Rock Ranch Independent Living Program. That's a program that I'm proud to say I founded back in 1997. It's been continuously running since then. And what that program does is it prepares young men for life out on their own. We don't want them to be dependent on the government. We don't want them to be dependent on everybody else. We want them to be a contributing member of society. So we take young men who've had a difficult time through no fault of their own a lot of the times, and we try to train them. And when I retired 3-4 years ago now, Dustin stepped in with Belinda Heaty and took over. So I want to jump into your story, your personal story. It's something I was not aware of until just recently, and it's a little bit of a sensitive story in some respects. You want to be respectful to everybody, but
yes, sir.
But just kind of jump in there and tell me your story. It's a little bit of a surprise to me.
So a little bit of my story, and it's not something that I tell a whole lot, but I've really prayed on this, and me and my wife discussed it last night. And when I was younger, and maybe most people don't know this, but a lot of it comes from how my dad did raise me. But when I was younger, probably 2 or 3, I'm not 100% sure the age, but my parents divorced. And my mom got custody of me, and I went and lived with my mom. And we moved we actually moved all over the place in the beginning. We were in Hoax Bluff, Glencoe, Sandrock. I probably went to 5 or 6 different schools throughout this whole process. And both my parents remarried. My dad remarried, my mom remarried. So while I was living with my mom, we had, she was with my stepdad, and he worked full time. He was a welder. And we ended up with more kids. When my mom remarried, I had a sister, an older sister that was already my stepdad's. I had an older brother already, but then we had 3 more. So I had 4 brothers and a sister. And when we moved to Sandrock, I lived up there, and we lived in a double wide out in the middle of the woods. And I can remember some of it. We didn't even have, I think, real plumbing to begin with. I mean, we were going out in the woods to begin with because we were trying to plumb this trailer in and do all this, and they were working real hard to make it happen. And but as I lived with them and grew up, I kind of, things kind of changed. It was a little different. My mom and stepdad, as I was growing up, were both they both drank, and had that as an issue for them. And a lot of times would come, say, on the weekends, they would always have friends over, and they'd drink, or they'd put a pig in the ground and roast it. All good fun. But a lot of times when all that ended and stuff, we might get the brunt of a little bit of that angry drunk or that upset or whatever like that. So a lot of it, it seems sometimes was a little verbally aggressive towards us. And kind of dealt with some of that. We had, and then I'd go see my dad, on the weekends or every other weekend when I'd go see him, and I would notice such a difference in between lifestyles. My dad and stepmom, well, they were involved in church, and every time I'd go spend the weekend with them, I'd go to church with them. I loved it. I wanted to be there, but I loved my mom. And I love my brothers and sister, and I wanted to be with them too. But I didn't really quite understand. I was still young. I was still under 12 years old. Well, time just kind of continued to go on, and it just didn't seem to get better on my end. I didn't feel at home sometimes. I didn't feel, I'm not going to say loved, because I always felt loved by my mom, but it always just kind of, it was just kind of rough. It just wasn't the home environment in my eyes, even at that age, 10, 11 years old, that I pictured it was supposed to be like. And it kind of came to a breaking point when I turned 12. I knew I was smart enough to understand that at that time I couldn't go before a judge and tell the judge where I wanted to live till I was 12, you know, and at that time I was really struggling. I didn't know, and I had finally turned 12 years old, and I was still kind of back and forth with it, just kind of dealing with it, going through the motions. And, I had something, we had an experience kind of happen that just really kind of put me over the edge living there.
Yeah.
And I won't go into full details on that.
Sure.
But it broke my heart when that happened, and kind of put me to a point where I was real angry. Didn't understand, what was happening. And I went to my dad, and I told him, I said, I want to come live with you. I want to make this happen. I don't want to live here anymore. So, we went through the whole process, went through court, went through all that. And my dad did get custody of me. So I went and lived with my dad. Kind of broke my heart to begin with, because I knew I hurt my mom a little bit through all that. But I went and lived with my dad. Well, as time kind of went on, I was still visiting my mom and stuff, but my stepdad got, he ended up being a traveling welder. So they ended up going to Illinois, up north, Wisconsin, all these different places like that. So I didn't really see my mom, stepdad, and brothers that much anymore, because they moved, and they were always going to different places. And as I lived with my dad, I learned a lot more through that. And I'll say this, my dad never once in my life that I remember ever whooped me, ever used anything. My dad just had this firm voice. And when he used it, it put me, it put me down. Like I was done. Like, yes, sir, and I'm done. It was a healthy fear, I guess is the best way, when my dad would bring that in.
Nothing wrong with a healthy fear, by the way.
Exactly. There's not. And that's what my dad brought to the table. And anytime, it was funny, because as I got older living with my dad, me and him may have some good argument, as I'm getting 16, 17. And me and him would get in this big argument or something, and he would, of course, always win, and I'd always end up with my stuff taken up or grounded or something like that happening. But it was funny, because my stepmom would always sit down with him whenever I'd go, he'd ground me to my room or whatever then, and she'd sit down and she'd tell him, how you just reacted and how you just talk to your son. What if something happened? What if that was the last thing you said to him? Wow. So she would always convict him on that, and he would always come back in and sit down and have more of a loving conversation with me about why.
Your dad was man enough to admit
he'd
made a mistake and come and sit down with you.
Yes.
How does that, what kind of respect does that cause a child to develop for their dad? When your dad can sit down and apologize or come to you, what does that cause you to think about your dad?
So that gives me a lot more deal respect to my dad, and it made me love my dad even more, because not many people can do that. And there ain't many grown people that can come and admit that they're wrong even when they make a mistake. Because a lot of times in those moments, you're the adult, you're the grown person, this is how it is, and, get over it type mentality. But it shaped me into a better person because of that. Because even now with my kids, I may get aggravated at my 5-year-old daughter because she just snapped at my wife, or she, was very disrespectful. But even after that, I'm like, okay, I should have handled that different. And I'll sit down with her and I'll explain why and what happened and why we did that. Just to kind of go a little further into the story, I had a lot of anger and stuff towards my mom and my stepdad, and kind of how they handled all that and how I felt and stuff through that. But I do know, as I got older and more mature, and when I had my first, it honestly probably took me till I had my first child, Aubrey, to be able to honestly forgive my mom and stepdad through all that. And God's changed them. They are totally different people now. God has taken them and changed them, and they are some of the most loving, amazing grandparents you could ever see. And they, I would trust them with my kids any day, and that's just the grace of God and how he changed that and went through that.
There's hope. I mean,
Exactly.
the guys that you deal with at Eagle Rock and the guys that we deal with in the community need to know there's hope. But sometimes it feels like they feel like their parents will never change.
Exactly.
And like it's just going to always be a terrible situation. But there's always hope that things can turn out better. So bring us on forward. You lived with your dad there through high school, I guess?
So I did. I lived with my dad through high school, and everything. I'm not going to say everything was just rainbows and unicorns, but I learned a ton through my dad. And some of the biggest stuff that I learned through my dad was responsibility. When I graduated, he took me to a dealership and he co-signed for me to get a Jeep. And I'd been doing well. I'd been working, I'd been doing what I needed to. I was still living with him and stuff like that. And I was he said, you got to make the payments. And he told me straight up, he said, if you don't make the payments on this Jeep, you miss one payment, I'll put it in the front yard and I'll sell it. And I said, yes, sir. Okay. Well, you don't overly think that's that serious in the moment. But time kind of went on and I was, working a job. It was through a temp agency. And I had lost the job at the temp agency, and I had a car payment coming up, and I didn't have the money to pay for it. And I was honestly at the moment was not in a huge hurry to just grab another job. Wasn't even thinking of those consequences at the moment. Well, my dad receives a phone call that says, hey, you're late on a car payment. Well, my dad comes and he don't really have a conversation at all with me. He just walks over and he gets my keys and he takes the stuff out of my Jeep and he sets it on the porch and he drives my Jeep to the end of the driveway and parks it and puts a for sale sign on it.
He didn't say anything to you?
No. It was the whole thing was, hey, you missed your payment. I told you not to. Give me the keys, and that was it.
There's no need nagging you about it, was there?
No,
just do what you got to do.
And he parked it, and he sold it in a day, and it was gone.
Oh, so, what a lesson!
Yeah. So I had to learn an extremely hard lesson, and I will say, in that moment, I despised my dad for everything. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want nothing to do with him because he just took the Jeep that I had been paying on and did that. But man, looking back now. What a lesson to be learned, and how what he was doing through those was shaping me to be the man that I am today now.
It wasn't about the Jeep.
No.
It wasn't about the money.
No.
It was about teaching my son how to be a man.
Yes. And that's what my dad was about. I mean, he was not, and he's still that way, and he would still do that, and he'd still take me and he'd put me in my place if I did something stupid like that.
Yeah. So you had some rough times as a young man, and so now you're working with those very guys that are in that age group that you were in when this happened.
Yes, sir.
Kind of walk us through your development and up to coming to the ranch, because I know you were going through a time of searching and trying to figure out what you really wanted to do.
I've told a few people this story. I told Belinda, I think, not long ago but I had this dream twice, and it was both times. It woke me up at the same time. And each of those nights, and it was on the same day. But my wife, before I had those dreams, my wife kept saying, just go talk to her, just see, and I was like, I don't know. Well, I had this dream that I was sitting in an office talking to Belinda about the job and accepting a job at Eagle Rock. That was the first time I had it. And it woke me up in the middle of the night. And I was like, okay, it's just on my mind.
Was it a long dream?
It wasn't an overly long dream, honestly. But I didn't think. I told my wife about it, and she's like, yeah, you need to go talk to her. And I was like, it's a dream. It's just on my mind. I'm just thinking about it. Well, the next Sunday, I went to bed. Same exact dream, same exact thing. Woke me up at the same exact time. And I've never had that happen before in my life, and kind of woke me up again. And I woke up my wife the next morning. I said, okay, I said, I had the same dream, same time. And I said, I'm going to text Belinda, and I text her, and now the rest is history. I met her in that office that I was having a dream in, which is Scott's old office, actually.
Yeah. Office.
And met her there, and we had a great conversation, and the rest is history now. Now I've been there for 2.5 years again, and running this independent living program. And, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. I think I covered.
So you reconciled, I don't know if that's the right word, but with your mom and stepdad.
Yes, sir.
How did you make things right? Because there was a little friction. We picked up on that.
So a lot of it was, once our firstborn was born, they were still living in Wisconsin, and they moved back down to Hokes Bluff because they wanted to be close. It was their first grandbaby actually born was this one, and when they moved back down, we just kind of slowly started to build that relationship back because I had not spent much time with my mom or stepdad, and I couldn't even tell you how many years at that point. But we just started slowly, kind of letting them back in and talking to them and working with them. And, I don't know that we ever just sat down and had a full-blown conversation about when we were kids and kind of how I felt and stuff like that. But, I do know that through all of this and her, she started going to Church of the Highlands with us when we were going there and stuff, and her getting saved and us having conversations on that and seeing who she is now. I forgave her, and I would have forgave her anyway. But her coming down here to be with her grandkids and to see us and to be around us was a big deal to me, since I had not been with her or been around her in so many years.
Yeah. So why don't I give you an opportunity to say that to your mom? Would you like to do that?
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure she'll watch this.
It's
probably something you'd want to say to your mom and stepdad.
Yeah, and mom, stepdad, Dan. I love you guys. I know we had a rough time kind of coming up, going through all of that. But I love you guys, and I forgive y'all for anything that we did deal with. You guys are amazing. Y'all are amazing grandparents. Your grandbabies do love you, and we love you. And we just look forward to the future that we continue to have with you guys, happy and healthy through all of this.
What do you think, Dustin? You have 2 kids. What do you think it takes to be a great dad today?
Number one, know Jesus. If you don't know Jesus, if you don't have that relationship with him, it's not that you can't be a good dad and still be there for your kids and stuff, but knowing Jesus and knowing the grace that he gives you daily, that's first and foremost. Because I'm going to tell you, if God didn't give me the grace that I don't deserve, if he didn't give me those things growing up, then I wouldn't be here today. And you got to have that. I mean, you got to be able to have grace for your kids. You got to understand that, your kids are not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to have troubles. They're going to have problems. But you got to be able to lead them in the way that Christ is leading you in the best way possible. And that don't mean you're not going to mess up. That don't mean you're not going to have your ups and downs and stuff like that. But just strive to, number one, get in God's word daily. Pray for your kids. Pray for your kids. Pray for your spouse. And do that daily. And you will notice a difference. And you have to be prepared as a father for the battles that come against your family.
I want to talk to the boys at Eagle Rock, but that's not just the boys at Eagle Rock. That's kids everywhere.
Correct.
It's kids that are in foster care. It's kids that are in other ranches. It's kids that are out there who just don't have a dad. You've been able, and I've been able, to see some of the challenges they face, and we both have some things that we would like to say to them. So I want to give you a chance first. First of all, what do you say to inspire those young guys?
So, I guess to inspire them and kind of talk, because of the way everything is now and how difficult the world is, You know, sometimes they come in completely defeated or upset, or, you know, just, you know, or maybe just things just aren't going their way, that they kind of see through all that. You know, me telling them now, because this will be the first time they've probably any of them have heard my full story and stuff like that, is you gotta understand that bad things do happen, even to good people. And there's going to be rough patches. There's going to be days that you feel like just giving up and just throwing in the towel and just forgetting, just kind of forgetting everything and just moving on to something else. But it's in those days that's what will help you to become a better man, when you stand up and go, you know what, today really is difficult. Today really is hard, but I know it's not going to be the worst. If this is the worst day of my life, then it's going to be good from here. So to just kind of inspire them to understand that, you know, they are going through a difficult time, and they might be here, you know, they're here for not their reason most of the time, not their reasoning, that they can change their story. They don't have to continue what they're doing. They don't have to continue the chain of what their family did, you know, maybe did to them or that they went through. That they can break that and they can change that, but they're the only ones that can do that. So,
yeah, I would say the same thing. There's so many of those guys who they're you know, some of their families are a mess. Not all of them. I want to be fair, but some of their families are a real mess,
Yes.
and I want to say to them that God can fix your family.
Absolutely.
But I also want to say that if the family never gets fixed, you can change. You can flip the script. You can change it for your family. So I want to ask you, as we get ready to close, your dad's been a wonderful dad to you.
Yes.
And I want to give you a chance to honor your dad.
Absolutely.
And if you would, just look into this camera right over here. And this is your chance to speak your heart to your dad.
Yeah, Dad, I just got to tell you, I definitely would not be the man I am today without you. You definitely molded me into a hardworking, responsible father who cares for his kids just the way that you cared for me, even on those days where, you know, we might have been extremely mad at each other or, you know, whatever. You know, you still showed that you cared, that you loved me. And, you know, I honor you, you know, for that. And I'm grateful that I had a father like you to be able to be there for me, to take me to the ball games, to be there for my, you know, my track and field meets, taking me to state, you know, and my discus throwing, to do those things, to have you there in my life through all that. And I'm grateful that you're here now for my grandkids. And to love on them now and to spoil them that you get to now, and all that. So Dad, I love you. I'm grateful for you, and look forward to many more years with you.
Awesome. So Dustin, we've had a lot of guests on the program and on the podcast, and a lot of them have been a lot older than you. Their kids are grown, and when kids get grown, they really develop a sense of appreciation for what their dads have done through the years. But when they're little, they also have a sense of appreciation. It can be a little different. So as a gift to you, the production crew got a couple of little video clips from your family, and just want to share those with you.
Okay.
All right, Aubrey, what is something that you love most about Dada?
That he plays with me.
And where's your favorite place to go with Dada?
The beach.
The beach. And is there something you want to thank Dada for?
That he reads to me every night before I go to bed.
That's very sweet. Hey, baby, we just wanted to thank you for loving us like you do and protecting us. You truly are the greatest man I've ever known, and I have so much respect for how you always put Jesus first in your life and then us second. and how you always strive to just be a better father and a better husband. We couldn't ask for anyone greater to have, and you truly are the best. We would be lost without you, and we love you so much. Anything else you want to say?
We love you to Pluto and back, and I love you 100 as the moon.
Oh, that's very sweet. Abram, can you say Dada?
Dada?
Can you say Dada? Say Dada. Dad, dad, dad. Okay, we love you, baby.
Lord help y'all.
Dustin, the day's coming where, those kids are going to be grown.
Right.
And I feel confident that they're going to say the same things again. Daddy, thank you for loving us to Pluto and back, for being there for us, for reading for us at night. And you're not going to regret it one bit.
No, sir. Not at all.
How does that make you feel?
It definitely, man, it gets you so good. I love them. I wouldn't be, my wife and kids, man, they're my rock. They keep me going every day, and I love them so much. And I just look forward to those years growing up and with them and watching them grow.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell you that I appreciate you stepping in. When I retired, it's difficult to find people with the calling that you have.
Yes, sir.
And when I retired, I told Belinda, I said, I don't know if it's sustainable. If you can't find the right people, you just can't. And you can have all the money and facilities in the world. If you don't have the right people, you're wasting your time. So I want to personally thank you for stepping in and being Belinda's partner and helping and running that, and for investing your days and your nights.
Yes,
I've been there. I know how difficult it is. I want to thank you for investing in those young men and continuing something that I got to be a part of.
Right.
I love to see it continue. God knows how long it will continue, and I'm so grateful that you've taken it and ran with it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here too.
Yes, sir.
That'll conclude this episode of That's My Dad, where we're striving to break cycles of generational fatherlessness, and we're trying to inspire fathers to become great dads. See you next week.